his speaker. I try to work it out with him already.
Okay.
We're at our max.
We're at our max.
We're at our max.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for joining me, everyone. Welcome to the program live here at YouTube and as of today at TikTok. Charles Moscowitz here, and my guest is Julio Gonzalez. He is a tax expert. Julio, you are with Engineered Tax Services, and we're going to be discussing the Hunter Biden scandal. Now, just for a little overview here, after the election, interestingly, the media, the controlled media, decided finally to acknowledge that there is a problem with Hunter Biden accepting contracts and monies from foreign governments, particularly China, Ukraine, and others, and that the laptop indicates that former Vice President Joe Biden might have been involved in it. His brother, Biden's brother, that is, may have been involved. And now, very gallingly, it turns out that Trump Attorney General William Barr had been investigating this scandal for almost a year and never mentioned it to the public or even to the president. And that the recent developments indicate that completely exonerate Trump in terms of asking the Ukrainian prime minister to investigate this, given that the Biden people all along denied that it ever happened. We now know that it did. Now, Julio, you look at things from a tax perspective. What is going on regarding this scandal and possible tax problems? Is it tax evasion? What is it all about?
Well, tax evasion, tax avoidance. It's both really, and both are very criminal charges. The Department of Justice takes over. Once they take over, you're looking at 3 to 5 years minimum prison time, right, for these type of things. Like, we already know that the tax avoidance was already done, right, because he subsequently paid some of these taxes delinquently with penalties and avoided prison time. But now they're saying that there's bank statements, international avoidance and abduction of income, really, without paying taxes. They're finding these in international bank statements. The Department of Justice is involved. You're right, Barr knew, but didn't want to go public. And in fact, his team said that they didn't want to disrupt or influence the presidential race, which is just crazy, right? That we as a public, voting public, wouldn't have the right to know these things in advance of the election. I just feel that's criminal as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, just to comment on the potential criminality of the media blackout of this information. This is typical, actually, not to sound too partisan here, but this is how the liberals and the left and the media operate. Being in Boston, I mean, this is par for the course for the Boston Globe, in that they will withhold the bad news about the candidate they favor until after they're elected and safely ensconced in office. And then they release it on a kind of a slow news day as you get close to Christmas, with the hope that maybe there might be 1 or 2 days of gnashing of teeth, and then everybody forgets about it and moves into the Christmas season. And that seems to be what they're trying to do here. They're trying to stage manage this bad news. But the fact that it's happened on a national scale and that the media has decided, and even openly in the case of NPR, saying, we're not going to cover this story, that they decided what the American people were going to know and not know in an election, is something that I think is bigger than a national scandal. It very well could involve criminal elements to it if it was indeed coordinated by the mainstream media. But Julio, I want you to, if you don't mind, outline some of what you know about the charges against Biden's son, Biden's brother, Biden's family members, and how they were used essentially as straws in a money laundering scheme, shaking down foreign leaders with Biden as vice president using his position, and whether or not you think Biden was getting kickbacks, which is what the Hunter Biden laptop seems to indicate.
It certainly does. I mean, look, we know that they used the vice president's influence to get massive contracts, very financially laced contracts in Asia, throughout the European countries as well, and that those monies were funneled through Hunter Biden and some of his other family members, and ultimately to potentially the new president. I mean, there's no doubt. Like when we look at these cases, when we have clients with these cases, it always starts with one family member, right? The Department of Justice, the IRS, the Treasury, but it always 100% of the time just goes and it spreads out to the other family members. There's always multiple family members involved. There's always money being, shared and streamed. And typically, the Department of Justice, will play on the different family members to determine how much they all collectively want to spend in prison or how they want to collaborate to help not spend any time in prison. And I think this is definitely going on. I mean, it's clear that the monies came in. It's clear that now we found international bank statements showing that these monies came into the United States, came into the Biden camp, that there was no taxes paid on this, right? So that's number one, horrible mistake with the IRS, Treasury, right? And then the Department of Justice gets involved because international, the money amounts that are involved, right? They looking for those big amounts, and obviously because they're involved, they found quite a bit of a big money scandal here. And then there's no doubt that they're investigating all the family members, associated parties. They have that laptop, which we all knew about, right? The media knew about it. We all knew about the laptop. We all knew that there was ongoing scams internationally using our tax dollars, your tax dollars, my tax dollars to fund these trips over there, to fund their influence, right? So we all paid for that.
Right. There's pictures, there's video of Biden getting off the plane with family members. And then suddenly these same family members make these big, fat, lucrative deals with the foreign government that was just visited. Biden claimed, oh, he knew nothing about it, which is absurd. What I find troubling about it, well, there are several things, but one of the things is the fact that the FBI covered up the laptop for a year, and that now we know that Bill Barr covered up the investigation, possibly going all the way back to the phony impeachment. Whereas if this had been revealed at the time, there would never have been an impeachment because Trump was absolutely in his right to ask for this to be investigated since there was truth to it. There was evidence of it. And yet all of that evidence was withheld. I guess the thing that astonishes me, one of the things that astonishes me about it, besides the given aspect, the corruption, is that Biden has been doing this since he was a senator. He apparently was doing it, and it's similar to, reminds me of the Clintons, the way they operated. When you have a powerful politician in a small state like Delaware or Arkansas, they can get a lot done for themselves, and they get their members of their families put on boards of directors. They get, shakedowns in exchange for contracts, as Biden apparently did with MBNA banking. Um, and yet Biden is not stupid. I mean, how could he have been involved with tax evasion? I mean, didn't he know that that's something that would catch up to him and to his family members?
Well, certainly it's very brazen. And certainly he felt that through the charades that they were using other family members, that ultimately he could, hide it and ultimately get to the presidency where he could make sure that everyone was protected. I think that was the game plan. I think the presidency was more of an urgency thing, right? To make sure that this all got covered up. Now we have it in the media. Now the media is touching upon it. But we impacted an election because we as individuals here, citizens, didn't have the information. And I can't imagine citizens voting for
absolutely.
a person like this that's using their power and dodging taxes that we're paying. We're all making up those tax dollars and now investigating, which causes us more tax dollars to go out, right? So we're all being punished because of bad behavior by this family.
Oh, I'm sure that he would never have been, quote unquote, elected, assuming that he was, had the public known about this, or had it not been. I mean, the mainstream media's approach to it was to call it a Russian propaganda, right? Which we now know is completely false. To my way of thinking, that they were consciously and deliberately lying, and they should be investigated for that. I mean, especially given the coordinated nature of it. And maybe Biden thought that he could get away with it the same way the Clintons got away with it all those decades. If you genuflect enough to the left and you do the bidding of the establishment, and you serve as a useful tool for the internationalists or whoever, then you can do almost anything. I mean, it's like a two-tiered system of justice. They'll never be held accountable. I mean, the Clintons will never be held accountable. None of the people that conspired to overthrow President Trump through the phony dossier and the spying, they're not likely to ever be held accountable because they're powerful. They've got people that are well placed all over the world. And I think that's part of the corruption, this kind of arrogance that they really live by their own set of laws and that they're entitled. I mean, I think that they feel entitled to enjoy the benefits because, after all, they're on the good side. You know, they're on the right side of history, so they get away with it, and they don't even think in terms of any semblance of moral equilibrium. I mean, they don't have to abide by those rules. Those are for everyone else.
No question about it. They feel like they're above the law. My question is, and I've seen the Department of Justice, even with, the clients we have, the Department of Justice is typically pretty ruthless and uncompromising.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that they're involved. We know that they're investigating. Will they continue the same path they've done for everyone else? Or will they somehow sequester to the above the law politics? I mean, that's what I'm really curious about. And I'm wondering what will become public record, and will there be really someone on the conservative side that does really good reporting of what is going on currently that we should all have information to?
It seems to me that there's enough information at this point that's available, even as the liberal media, for whatever reason, which is something that we can only fathom, are now releasing elements of this story, that there is now enough information that we do know about that the president could appoint a special counsel to investigate, and that special counsel would be like the Mueller team, and they will be sitting whether or not President Trump is rightfully reelected or whether they're successful in stealing the election. Either way, the special counsel will be sitting, and will be sitting probably for at least a year, investigating this whole mess. Do you think that that could happen?
I do think that can happen. And I guess, my biggest concern, I think you mentioned it, is why, William Barr didn't already do this process, right? He had the information. I'm sure he knew that there was enough evidence there to go through this. And then somehow, again, we all find out post-election, on a quiet day, like you said. And now, with relatively little time to put together this special group to get this started. But I think it's absolutely monumental that gets started.
Well, I think that Barr has proven to be a faker. I mean, he has never done anything other than give some lip service. And yet, I don't know if he's even needed, because now it's a matter for the IRS to look at. It just came out that there's $400,000 in unreported income from Burisma going into the Hunter Biden pocket. And according to Hunter Biden's own web laptop, he would give, I think, 50% to the quote big guy.
Yeah, we know who the big guy is.
Yeah, and I mean that's like that's called kickbacks. I mean, Vice President Spiro Agnew had to resign for that. I mean, he was taking kickbacks when he was governor of Maryland, and I think he even took a few in while he was in the White House. He would. It's like walking over and giving someone a an envelope filled with cash. This is old-fashioned, bribery and kickbacks. I mean, this is by for any of the rest of us out here, us lumpen proletariats, we'd be in the big house right now for that.
We would all be in the big house for that. $400,000 is just that alone, right? And that we know. We already know that there were other amounts not paid. That's been reported as well. All those levels are criminal, right? It's
Yeah, I mean,
above.
apparently he got a diamond ring that was worth something like 100 grand. He was given the Chinese gave him like expense credit cards where he could, with paying for lavish meals and hookers and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've had athletes not pay taxes on their Super Bowl rings
Yeah,
and get jail time, right? Because and for them, they didn't even know. All right, but we're dealing with someone that certainly knows that diamond rings, fringe benefits, money hidden through foreign accounts are taxable issues.
right. And
And
I think that there is now more than casual evidence that Biden was absolutely in on it. I mean, Hunter Biden's partner, Bobulinski, is a whistleblower, an honorable individual. He's a former Marine. He's a sterling record. He has stepped up and testified and did so before the election, I may add, that Biden was in the same room as the two of them and talking about a deal with China. This is a foreign adversary. I mean, this is, to have someone now possibly this close to the White House who, was making these kinds of deals with China. And this on top of the scandal of Chinese intelligence agents infiltrating into this country over the past, I think, at least decade. And some of these cases are coming out now. We could look to Representative Swalwell and others as having become enmeshed in it. I mean, and this is going to be our administration. I mean, this is really, I think, a national security problem.
boy, I think so because look, they've already said that they want to bring back the relationships with Asia, with China. They want to revoke the tariffs.
Right.
They want to inject back the regulations, all to force us to buy back from China, to be partners with them. We saw how bad that was when the pandemic, right? When
Yeah.
they gave us the virus and then cut off the supplies. And we saw what it was to have those things in place with President Trump in terms of economy recovery for small businesses here. Well, I guess they just want to remove that so that they can control us and continue to dominate the bad behavior there in the White House and the administration. I think we're seeing that. I mean, look, it goes on. They're not just not paying the Treasury, right? They're not paying the IRS. They're not paying the women that have their children. And, it just extends on beyond that. They're not paying the property taxes. I mean, this is ongoing, right?
Yeah.
And, it's at every level, right? So,
Well, I mean, I think that, this should, I mean, it's not going to be the same country if this is successful and if they are able to get to the White House. We're not going to see an independent country that's going to stand up for against adversaries again. I mean, it's it's worse. I mean, at least there was some checks and balances. I mean, there was a few shreds of patriotism in that White House, but this time around, I mean, this is like a real capitulation. It's something that, again, if the American people had known about it in advance, it never would have even gotten this close. And the culpability goes to the complete supine nature of the media refusing to investigate or to cover any of this, and to continue to censor. I mean, I don't even know if this program is going to end up going on YouTube today. I mean, or TikTok where I'm live. It's just they have everything almost hermetically sealed at this point, and they're just sort of dribbling the ball down the court, trying to run down the clock and get this in so that they can then have their power. It comes down to that.
yeah. And I think you're right. Like, the only shred left for us is winning those Senate seats in Georgia. I mean, that's
And
the
also
only.
expose, I mean, I will tell you, I'm not even remotely feeling like we have to throw in the towel on this presidency. I mean, at all. I mean, the in Michigan, there was just the completion of a forensic audit of the Dominion voting machines in Antrim County. We may recall that that's the county where 6,000 votes, and they admit this, were electronically switched from Trump to Biden. Now it turns out that votes were switched and tampered with on a more local level there as well by these same machines, and that there was an audit. There was a lawsuit brought. A judge allowed the audit to go forward. The audit has been conducted, and now you have the liberal attorney general in Michigan and the liberal secretary of state and probably governor trying to block the release of the audit because there's obviously bad news. Otherwise, they wouldn't mind it being released. The audit, I think, according to leaks, and apparently there are some leaks, and again, these are just leaks, prove that these Dominion voting machines were online at the time, which means that they were manipulated, and it was possibly the manipulation emanated from a foreign source, which brings in foreign interference in our election, and that they were tampered with. And if this is shown, and if we can force them to release this information, that's going to change everything. That's going to cause the Dominion machines to be audited in all counties in Michigan and probably in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, and maybe even nationally, because don't forget, these machines are used in, I think, 21 states. So that's going to change everything. And that's why they're trying to tough it out right now.
Yeah, good point. We knew those machines were, a recipe for disaster. And
Oh, yeah.
Finally, we're getting some information. But you're right, we're being blocked at the state, through liberal state attorneys and governors. But you're right, if that information can get out, I think that's a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. And there are lawsuits to get it out. And you've got this incredible lawyer, Sidney Powell, bringing lawsuits that are now at the Supreme Court that are emanating from Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia, and I think Pennsylvania. The Supreme Court doesn't appear to want to get involved. There was apparently a leak, and my source on this is Jeff Kuhner from Boston's WRKO. Great talk show host. I really find his sources to be very good, and he's been around for a long time. I can't find any other source on it. But according to Jeff this morning, there was a Supreme Court clerk who taped a conversation between Chief Justice Roberts and Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, the three Trump appointees, where he screamed and yelled and banged the table and cursed and threatened them to get in line and not permit the Texas case to go forward. And unfortunately, they caved. I mean, according to this tape. And again, I can't confirm that.
Yeah, I mean that decision by the Supreme Court so quickly was, such a head scratcher, and how.
Well, it didn't make any sense because they said it's not our jurisdiction, but that's exactly their jurisdiction. When a state sues another state, that is exactly where it automatically goes, the Supreme Court. So there is something really rotten going on there.
Yeah, that one was really hard to understand, and hopefully, that information gets out, because for all of us, I think it left us very confused on how that could be dismissed so quickly.
Yeah, very bad. But yet, there are now more cases starting to work their way there. And, I hear the mantra and the sort of the talking point by liberals that 50 some odd cases have been dismissed that have been brought. But first of all, most of them have not been brought by the Trump team. Only 3 of them have been brought by the Trump team. The rest of them are brought by local people and local parties where they feel the votes have been suppressed. And they are dismissed on technicalities. It's not like they're dismissed based on the evidence. The evidence has not even been heard. They don't get that far. They find some technicality. It's not the right jurisdiction, this, that, the other thing, so that the case is blocked. It doesn't even get far enough to be heard by a judge.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. We got to get this resolved. And, like you said, Sydney, what a warrior, to be out there throughout the country fighting for all of us.
Incredible.
For the truth, really.
Yeah, exactly. Her and also Lynn Wood and Giuliani and all these people.
No
and
question about it.
Jenna Ellis
warriors.
and, all the whole team there, DeGeneva and Tonsing. There are some great people out there who are really stepping up and trying to bring justice and use the system as it exists to try to essentially expose this, what I would call conspiracy. And we'll have to see what happens. So, Julio Gonzalez, you are the head of a tax assessment organization. You're looking into the Hunter Biden tax problems?
Yeah, nonstop, 24/7.
Okay. Would you let my listeners and viewers know where they can get more information about your work and what you guys are doing over there?
Sure. Yeah, I update on Twitter at Tax Reform Expert, and we'll keep you posted. And we're so appreciative of what you're doing out there to help everyone out there in the country and bring the education and make sure that people are aware of these situations. It's people like you that make the difference right now, and we're so appreciative.
As are you, Julio Gonzalez. I really want to thank you for joining me this afternoon, and have a great afternoon.